Hey friends, this is Dan and Stephanie Burke. We're back. For those of you who subscribe to the 40 days for mental prayer, those of you who were on live last week know that we had a total power failure right at the end of a answer.
The word of Mary.
The word of Mary.
So said her name, and the whole neighborhood went out.
And those demons are going to be sorry for that because she's a she's a high knee kicker when it comes to that. But
I bet everybody was praying their rosary extra fervently after that.
It was weird.
Wow.
It just happened right then. So the entire neighborhood went out. Somebody put in the notes, hey, you guys should have a UPS power backup supply. And I'm like, well, it doesn't work when the whole neighborhood goes out, the whole grid goes down, there's no internet, nothing.
Yeah.
So anyway, it wasn't just our local computers. We're actually pretty redundant here. Alabama power and stuff is a little bit funky.
Yeah, so it was out of our control.
It was.
We're glad to be back.
We're glad to be back, and really encouraged 11,000 of you signed up for the commitment to increase mental prayer as a discipline in life.
Yeah, it is very encouraging. What I love about it, and I think we mentioned this last week, is that those 11,000 people are people who are saying yes to God. They're saying, I want more of Jesus. I want to start to learn to pray, or I am praying and I want to pray with others during this beautiful time of Lent. It's a great time if you don't have a practice of mental prayer to start. So we're grateful to be here and grateful to be speaking to you.
So what we did in the last show wasn't a show. I'm thinking it's like, this is we're doing this, of course, in our normal radio studio. So that's, I think, Divine Intimacy Radio. But what we did is, of course, we did a little intro on prayer, and just to get folks kind of warmed up to whatever questions they had. And then we received a bunch of questions, and we only got through a few of them. So this will be a continuation. Maggie, do you know where this will, like the previous recording, will be posted? Do you know? Okay. No matter what, you'll get an email with the recording of the first webinar.
Few minutes.
Yeah.
First few questions.
And then you'll get this one, of course, a recording as well. So we're just going to go and jump into Q&A because that's where we were cut off last time. And if our producer could put that up on the screen, that'd be great. Okay. I feel the benefits of God. The benefits God gives me through mental prayer are so illusory that if I don't write them down, I haven't received anything. Any suggestions for me?
Oh, you want me to jump in here?
Yeah, jump in there.
Okay. So, yes, it can feel sometimes a little nebulous because so much of what is going on during mental prayer can be unperceivable to us. Imperceptible. So there's these passive purifications that are happening to us. We're receiving graces. We're being purified.
Yeah.
We're being strengthened. We're being encouraged. Virtues are rising up.
Yeah.
But if there are some of a particular, like a little bouquet, a little idea, some sort of inspiration that the Lord gives you, that you think, oh, I want to remember that, or that's important, or I think he's asking, me to get rid of this vice in my life, or he wants me to be kinder or more loving in this relationship, or whatever he's inspiring you to. It is okay to write it down. I mean, I think you and I both have a little sticky notepad that's stuck into our prayer book, so that if something comes to mind that we want to keep and we want to carry into our day, we just jot it down. And I actually think that's a great idea at the end of your mental prayer, to decide, what am I going to carry forth in my day, or what do I think the Lord's inspiring me? Jot it down, take it with me, and I can go back to that and revisit it, maybe at noon during my lunchtime, or at the end of the day. I can go back and use it as part of my examen to see how it went.
Yeah, St. Francis de Sales and other saints have recommended the idea of, if you have an encounter in prayer, take it with you into the day, write it down. The other thing about this is, and I'm not being harsh in any way, but I'll just say it in a very direct way. Your feelings don't matter. Your feelings have no bearing upon whether or not God's moving or not.
That's true.
It's just sometimes we're blessed to know it, and sometimes we just don't have any clue. So when you show up, when you spend time in the presence of God, you will be changed.
Right.
Feelings or no, you may feel completely, totally, 100% arid. You may feel nothing. You may feel terrible. But if
you may just cry.
You're right. You're right. You may feel desolation, but if you come and you stay, you will be blessed no matter what.
Right. And I think most importantly, we need to understand that prayer's not really about us.
Yeah.
It's about a relationship. It's about drawing near to the Lord. He says, draw near to me and I will draw near to you. So, and if we think about Christ as being our perfect ideal, our ideal par excellence, what we know about the Lord is his greatest, most beautiful virtue is that his perfect selflessness, completely self-giving to the point of dying on the cross for us. So that's what we're there for. We're there to draw near to him out of justice, because he's God and he deserves our time and our attention. He's asked for us to come to him. He wants that relationship, and out of love, out of devotion. And then the benefits of it are actually kind of secondary, but they're beautiful.
Yeah.
And then if we feel it or not, we can certainly look back on our life a month later, 3 months later, 5 years later, 11 years later, and go, wow, look at what the Lord's done. You may not remember it in the day, but your loved ones will see it over time.
Yeah.
And your life will change for the better, and you will change the world around you.
It's interesting. I don't get much consolation in prayer. And you can take that question down and put up the next one if you like. I don't get much consolation in prayer. And years ago, I even prayed and I said, Lord, if me having no feeling or sensory perception of your presence, no consolation would be a benefit to my soul or the souls of others, that suffering of being in the desert, then I'm happy to receive that. And he's answered that in a lot of ways for me. So, and I was talking with my spiritual director and about it, and just about, funny enough, what the person wrote, I feel, right. I just, I'm in the desert. I know I prayed for that. And it seems he's answering that. And, he said, it's the fruits are how you measure over time, over a good period of time. And he said, the fruits are good. Just, you're all good. Cause I was wondering if I needed to change anything or, whatever. So it's normal to have that sense. And it's also normal for the enemy to say, what are you wasting your time for?
Right. Right.
And everybody's heard that who's spent any time in prayer. So,
yes, absolutely. Yeah,
so what's the next question? What is your preferred Bible translation? I like the one that has Jesus in it. Is that the one you like the best?
No, the Catholic one with Jesus in
it.
The
Catholic one with Jesus in it, right? Right. The one with all the books. That's my favorite translation. So translations, there's a handful that are good. The RSV, Revised Standard Version, is pretty good. It's quasi-literal, but not stiff, like the New American Standard, and it's also available in the Catholic version. RSVECE is the technical kind of nomenclature for it, and there's a great study Bible that Ignatius Press makes that Scott Hahn is the editor of, RSVCE. So that one's great. There's another one called the Knox translation, Ronald Knox, which is also exceptional. The Douay Rheims is
my favorite.
That's Stephanie's favorite.
I love that one.
You're just a trad, woman. That's the thing. But yeah, the Douay Rheims is fantastic.
I like the these and the thous. There's something very beautiful about it.
Right. Yeah. So I like the Jerusalem Bible. It's easy to read. Sophia Institute has come out with something very cool, and it's called the Reader's Bible. And I think it's a version of the Jerusalem, but basically it has no numbers or designations on chapters. And so it's to help you read more devotionally without getting distracted by, because sometimes, those numbering systems were put in a long time ago. And scholars now, as they're getting better understanding of the text, will point out that it shouldn't have broken there from one chapter to the next. That was really, even though it didn't look like a complete thought, it was. So there's something very pure about that. So you can go out to Sophia Institute or SophiaPress.com. Gosh, my brain is not working
Sophia
now.
Institute.
Sophia Institute Press, whatever. You'll find it. Oh, just go to our website, SpiritualDirection.com, click shop. That'll take you to Sophia's website, and just search for Reader's Bible. So RSVCE, Douay Rheims, Jerusalem, Knox, those are all great translations, right, to help you.
The most important thing is to crack it open.
Yeah. I like the Knox translation because he has a doctrinal mind. Ronald Knox, of course, is a scholar, and the way he translates is with a Catholic head. And sometimes you have to be careful who the scholars are we're translating. They all like to pretend to be objective, but if you read modern Protestant translations, they will corrupt the text and twist things in ways that are not helpful. So stick with the versions we're talking about.
Okay.
I sometimes have experiences during prayer that my director and my parish priest might not be familiar with. Sometimes I want to know if these are from God or from the enemy. Well, that's a great question. You want to take a shot at it first? You want me to?
Go for it.
Okay. So one thing to understand is that St. Teresa of Avila noted she was more advanced than I think all of her spiritual directors, probably except for St. Pedro of Alcantara, who was an extraordinary priest, extremely holy. And sometimes she was the catalyst for her directors to become converted and make a lot of progress. And the reason I bring that up is your directors do not have to be where you are. I'm not even assuming you're more advanced than them, but they don't have to have experienced what you've experienced. So for instance, if you have a priest who has good formation from a good seminary, so he's got sound moral and dogmatic theology, what's most important is how you orient your life to God, not your experiences. So even if they don't understand specific kind of experiences, they can help to make sure that the fruits of those experiences are from God, because you're always, if they are, they're going to drive you to increase in virtue, decrease in vice, essentially. Right. Deeper into the heart of God, deeper into the heart of the church. Mm-hmm. So you're not being shortchanged by God if he has you with directors who are sound in those areas. In terms of whether or not they're from God or the enemy, it's not complicated. What are the fruits? First, you shouldn't focus on experience. I mean, just as a general rule, the John of the Cross teaches very clearly that if it's a spiritual experience from God, the benefit received comes either even preceding the experiential aspect or during.
Right.
And it's done.
Right.
And we need not dwell on it. But right. You want to comment on?
Well, it has the effect,
Right.
So whatever that that the Lord intends with that, even if it's a supernatural vision, mm-hmm. Say someone sees the face of Christ or whatever the Lord intended for that, if it's from God, happens before we're even aware of it. And mm-hmm. And the reason that we're supposed to just basically ignore it, and not in the terms of consolation, there's a difference here. But if we were to see it, we wouldn't want to dwell on it or right. spend all these times, going back. What did that mean? What, whatever it is, what is the fruit? And then whatever God intended for you to benefit from it, whatever the benefit was, would have happened to you imperceptibly, and that you will see the fruit of it in time, either immediately or later. Maybe it was to free you supernaturally of a particular vice that immediately you no longer have that vice and you're set free. Well, praise Jesus. That's right. All you need to know. So move on. Is it, we don't want to dwell on it. We don't want to cling to it, because what can happen is, even if the vision, and this is according to St. John of the Cross, even if we have a vision that we can perceive physically with our eyes, our human senses, right? The enemy can manipulate it right afterwards.
Right.
Imperceptibly, or we can
right.
through our own, filters or whatever, and then it becomes something else, right? So we can be free, not worry about it. What's the fruit? Is the Lord leading me, as you said, to a deeper experience with him, deeper virtue, an increase of faith, hope, and love? If it is, then you can be assured that that's of God and be at peace and go on with it.
Right.
But we don't want to focus on it. It can become an opportunity for pride. It can become an opportunity for somehow thinking some sort of deception. Oh, I must be special. This happened to me or whatever. All good comes from God. Everything is attributed. Anything good comes from God. So we should remain in humility and just look at the fruit.
The Therese once said, and Therese is much more like John in her spirit, in her interior life, interestingly enough. But she talks about, if you're walking along a path and you see beautiful flowers, you praise the Lord for them and keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't sit and stay in terms of those flowers being,
right.
Spiritual experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So your desire to know if they're from God or the enemy is okay. It's just the main measure is fruit and how it's working in your life. And then I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Yeah. And one thing to keep in mind is that the Lord's never going to inspire you to something that is contrary to your vocation.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a married woman, he's not going to, he's not going to inspire you to leave your husband to become a nun. Right. If you're, that kind of stuff. So
if you're a priest, he's not going to inspire you. You're truly called to be a priest. He's not going to inspire you to be married.
The Lord honors our vocation, even if we chose wrongly. Right. Even if we misinterpreted his will for us, he intends us to be holy within the path that we've chosen. Right. So that's another way, is he's not going to inspire you to go do something that's contrary to your vocation,
contrary to the magisterium, contrary to your vocation,
to the church, anything,
any of that. So those, I mean, we could write a book on this. It's got a lot of complexity to it.
Yeah.
But the simple truths are, don't focus on it.
Right.
Be blessed by it. Move on. If there are fruits, and if there are no fruits, the other thing is, you can, if you have an image, an apparition, something occurs to you that feels like it has a personage related to it, it has personality. Mm. You can say, and do you claim Jesus as Lord? Mm-hmm. And you'll find out pretty quick if it's something like that. But mm-hmm. I wouldn't worry about it too much.
Right.
All right. What's the next question? I always have a problem making my mind quiet just to listen. How do I quiet all those things racing through my mind? Yeah. So when you're dead, it'll be quiet.
Welcome to the human race.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just not possible. And, when we go to pray, really, it's more important that our heart, our spirit, our mind is oriented towards God. It's not about, emptying our mind or controlling thoughts or any of that, because that's
non-Christian Easter junk.
That turns into mindfulness and such. Yeah. And we're not about that. We're about filling our minds and hearts with Christ. So if you have a distraction, I tell my directees, when that happens and you're aware of it, once you're aware of it, because sometimes you go off in a distraction and it must seem like 5 minutes later, you go, oh my goodness, I've been writing my grocery list in my head for this whole time. And Lord, I'm sorry. Yeah. And you just come back and Lord, I love you. Gently. You just gently come back and Lord, I love you. I'm back here with you, and stay with him.
And don't allow prideful irritation as if you're supposed to be levitating and you're not yet. That can just be a whole nother bit of frustration. Mm-hmm. The other thing, we're sort of pessimistic about our humanity and our answers here. It is true that over the years, if you begin to purify your memory, if it's the enemy working on you or even your flesh, you will have less distractions in prayer as a norm. So what does that mean? Well, if you consume all kinds of social media, if you're consuming television, I don't know, people watch TV anymore. I don't know.
Yeah. Radio, YouTube, in the car,
whatever.
Facebooking, radio, visual noise.
So any kind of noise that you absorb that then enters into your memory, the enemy has access to those things. It can repropose those to you. The worst ones, of course, are sexual imagery or imagery or ideas that lead you to sin or anxiety, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So the more that you live a pure life of God, the more your memory becomes purified, right. The less junk there is to work with in prayer or to bring forward, right. Even if it's just our flesh, but in particular the enemy. So it does get easier over time. The other thing that can help your mind is not focusing on your mind, but filling it with Jesus. So same time every day, sacred time, sacred space, sacred attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the book Into the Deep if you haven't read it, although some of that is some of this was in the 40-day challenge PDF we made for folks. But if you practice those things, your body will be your friend. Another secret is my mind is extraordinarily active. And so what we use the humorous sort of analogy of the distractions being monkeys in your head. So when groggy monkeys rarely cause a ruckus. So I get up early.
Mm-hmm.
And
we both do.
When all my monkeys are asleep usually, and I try not to stir them by looking at my cell phone or looking at my computer. So don't wake the monkeys up, and get to prayer as early as you can when you're a little groggy. There's other issues with that. So every once in a while I wake myself up by my snoring, and realize I got distracted and then fell asleep.
Yeah.
But I find that really helpful to me as someone whose brain is way too active. And I can recollect myself during the day, but a longer practice of mental prayer for me is in the morning. I couldn't do it later in the day.
Yeah, I agree. Early in the morning is really what's best for me as well. It's also when the world is asleep, the children are asleep, the birds haven't started chirping outside. The children aren't lining up for the bus outside. It's still quiet. And I even like to keep the room visually quiet. I have the entire room
in the dark.
I do. I pray in the dark. The only thing I have lit on my little altar that I created, my prayer altar, is a few candles and a few icons and my crucifix, and I'm there. And it's beautiful because all of that lends my heart and mind to the Lord. So I'm even sitting a little lower, and so my heart and mind is drawn up to the crucifix and the light there. And I'll begin with my prayer. I invoke the Holy Spirit and stay in the dark, and I love it.
So we're talking about filling the heart and mind with God. Non-Christian East is obsessed with controlling thoughts, emptying the mind. Christian prayer is always about filling the mind. So if you're in the earlier to mid purgative way and you're still struggling with habitual sin, you need as much help as you can. So icons, visuals, candles, incense, things that help you to, using as many of the senses as possible. Spiritual reading as a form of mental prayer can be really helpful and valuable until your prayer begins to simplify. But then you're not fighting as much with distractions then, although they still come and they just don't bother you anymore.
Right. And, when you start to, and this is for those that are doing the meditations, you start to fill your heart and your mind with what you're reading, with the scripture verse or with the writings of Father Bartunik or yourself or whoever, and you're letting that ruminate within you. And then when you feel yourself go distracted off, you just go back to it gently, go back to it, read it again, or go back to the sentence that moved you or whatever, and then allow that to ruminate and to form. Use your I used to be a Catholic school principal, and I used to talk to the children about using their holy imaginations. To use that to dream and think about and imagine the Lord and imagine what he looked like and what he looks like and how he's walking along, or how he may be looking at you and talking to you. Or
that brings up one last thing, and I'll add this, is sometimes, so we talked about purification of the memory, but you can also gain a holy imagination, holy memory through like watching the film series The Chosen is off the charts, extraordinary. The Passion of the Christ. This morning when I was struggling, and I'm meditating on the Passion while we're recording this, of course it's Lent. And so I began to draw forth images from the Passion related to what I was trying to read, and I was having trouble reading meditation. So filling is the secret.
Right.
Okay.
Awesome.
How do I become little and become hidden in myself and not care if God knows of me and still have a personality and carry out his will with the gifts he's given? So dieting can help.
That is not what this person's talking about.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
No. Littleness is an interesting thing. It's a beautiful inspiration, and that the Lord's inspiring you to be little is a beautiful thing. So it comes through humility. So praying the litany of humility, asking the Lord to make you little.
Praying the litany of humility
is big, big, because when you, through God's grace, because we can't do it, he places that desire to be humble, that desire to be little on our heart, so we can abide in that, we can stay in that, we can follow that inspiration, we can pray for that virtue and for that grace. And the Lord can do it. We can't do it. But it comes through humility, and it really comes through detachment from the world, the flesh, the devil, everything, kind of this radical detachment. And if you want to kind of understand it a little bit better for those who don't get too upset about it, because I think it's beautiful. Some people find it a little disturbing, but that's the ascent of Mount Carmel, the drawing of St. John of the Cross. And so if you type in ascent of Mount Carmel, St. John of the Cross in your search engine, you'll find a drawing of it, unless you have one of his books around. And it actually shows a drawing on how to climb this mountain of ascent to get to the Lord, to be humble. And it's a complete detachment of self from your emotions, not in a nihilistic way, of your opinions, of your fleshly, whatever, everything.
And the goal at the end is we all become like Spock.
No.
Well, and the reason
it's purified and little and hidden in Christ with Jesus.
So I'm kidding, because it was the second part of their question.
Okay.
So can you put that up again? The second part is, and still have a personality and carry out his will with the gifts he's given me.
Right.
So that's why I'm kidding. Because remember when we were first married and I talked about detachment, you're like, what? I mean, we're supposed to be like Spock? No.
I never said that, actually, but that's okay.
But we were talking about it. So the what you just need to not worry about it. I mean, when I remember when I was struggling with wrath when I was younger, and I was very successful in business because I was a jerk, and because I was very motivated by anger and how stupid everything was, and so I was very driven to fix things. And then
pride and wrath.
A holy VP one time at Focus on the Family said to me, "Are you always going to be motivated by anger?" The Holy Spirit got in, and really, I lived with that for a year, because I thought, wow, I mean, the Lord really spoke to me through his challenge to me. And I thought, what will I become if I give it up? Will I be successful? And you know what? The answer is I wasn't as successful in terms of the outcomes regarding business, but I drew closer to God. I'm not saying I didn't have success, because I did have a lot of success, but I wasn't
in your perception,
Well, but I cared more afterwards. I took care of people better. And
and look what the Lord's done with it.
I know.
It's been incredible blessings.
I wasn't going to go. I didn't want to talk about myself. I'm rather talk about my sin.
I'm talking about the Lord. Look what he's done. Right.
Good.
So,
right. Yeah.
So, yes, you're absolutely right. And we had another conversation with a family member, and they haven't gotten there yet. But when we were encouraging them to greater detachment, to greater holiness, to abiding in the Lord and giving their heart and mind and their life and their fiat to the Lord, this family member said, "I'm afraid I won't like who I become."
Right.
Like, I'm afraid of who I'll become.
Right.
Right.
But you're going to become all that God designed you to be.
And people think of this complete abandonment to the Lord and living life completely in Christ as something boring. The world tells you it's this boring life, and we're all going to sit around very dour and with our eyebrows furrowed and all upset and sad. And the life in Christ is an adventure. It's extraordinary.
It reminds me of that theme song from some 60s or 70s show. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. Deep, dark depression, excessive misery. If it weren't for bad, it's like people think that of
right.
holiness. And that's what the devil wants you to believe.
A sad saint is a bad saint.
That's Teresa of Avila.
Yes, it is, So complete detachment, we actually become more of who we are.
Right.
Our personality becomes purified, and it's not
more beautiful, more attractive,
more free. Yeah. I mean, think of some of these beautiful nuns that go flying by, and they've got their veil flapping in the wind, and they look joyful.
She was on a hoverboard. Come on,
Dan. So they're beautiful because they're holy, and they're joyful. True. None of them seem to be lacking in personality to me. They actually are very beautiful. I think we misconstrue. We're attached to it. That's a vanity thing.
Yeah.
And with all gentleness. And so give it over to the Lord. You'll actually be free and joyful, and you'll never regret it.
Amen.
Let's just say that. Yeah.
Amen. Good. Next question. The mental prayer process you outlined, what do you consider the best times to have silence? We already covered that. I think it's early in the morning. I really believe in the Old Testament, there was a principle called first fruits. And so what it is every year when the harvest would come in, to thank God for a new harvest, the very first of the harvest, a portion of it is taken and offered up as a sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And so we call that our first fruits offering of every day. We have another new day. We're being gifted with it. And we take a portion of that time and give it back and sacrifice it to God. Mm-hmm. And because it really helps you to be quiet.
Right. The other thing is I like the phrase, a day hemmed in prayer rarely unravels.
That's a great phrase.
So if you start your day that way, you're covering your day in grace. You can think about, what does the Lord desire for me for this day? Make your commitments. And when you pray, that grace goes with you and covers your day. I can tell you that once you enter into a regular practice of mental prayer, mm-hmm. and something happens for whatever reason, you sleep through your alarm, or you're not feeling well, or whatever, and you don't get your mental prayer time in, you will find that day goes differently. And you're like, wow,
I got to get back.
I got to get back to prayer. This doesn't feel very good. You can feel the difference when you're not spending time in prayer and when you are. And the more time you pray, you're going to start to say, I can't live with this, and I don't know how anybody else lives without it.
I'll give you one last.
I can't live without it.
I'll give you one last analogy about a compass. So concupiscence, so we all have a compass that God gives us. Concupiscence always draws the compass away from true north. Let's say that's to God. Mm-hmm. It's always distorting the compass. So if you want to if you want to be holy and be on the path of God, every morning you have to fix your compass, because mm-hmm. concupiscence will always try to pull it off, and the enemy in the world, the flesh, all of that.
Sloth.
So whatever. You get up, mental prayer, focusing on Jesus, giving your heart and mind to him first, reset your compass to the true north, and mm-hmm. then you move into the day with him.
Right. Yeah. And the sacrifice to get up a little earlier, whatever that takes, you'll just never regret it.
Well, it's also, so what is authentic Christian life? Jesus said, take up your cross and follow me. Prayer and ascesis, which are the focal point of our own community, which is the contemplative life, is essentially understood to be prayer and ascesis. Ascesis is the exercise of self-giving and self-denial for godly purposes. Mm-hmm. When you get up early to pray, not only are you doing that good and holy thing that we're talking about, but you're also exercising your will against your lower nature, aligning it to your intellect and your will, which you want to be in subordination to God. Mm-hmm. That's very powerful in and of itself too. Mm-hmm. So there's so many benefits to getting up early, even when you don't feel like it.
Right. And the enemy hates it.
Yep. Hates it.
Yeah.
I have seen, I think, recommendations that mental prayer should be concluded with a resolution. Can you speak to this? Is it critical, just beneficial, or mostly important? I'll take a shot at it, and then you can. Yeah. So we already covered this a little bit. I think it's more helpful to the early purgative stage, my opinion. Why? Because at that stage, you don't know yourself very well. You're not even that aware of your own patterns of sin. You creating a rule of life can be helpful then, but it's more helpful a little bit later. So if you're in the early purgative stage, you're still struggling with habitual mortal or habitual venial sin, it's pretty good practice, I think, to practice that mental prayer and then ask the Lord or glean from it what he may want you to do during the day. Later on, as you mature, you don't need what you need is different. You need to develop a plan of love or a rule of life. If you haven't done that, you can read Navigating the Interior Life, and I give you a whole outline on how to do it. But then your mental prayer is just really maturing into an act of love to absorb yourself in God. Mm-hmm. So I've only found it helpful earlier stage for people. Otherwise, you're sort of being jerked around, and I don't know that it's always from God. Oh, this day I'm going to focus on this, and this day I'm going to focus on that. My big issues are very clear to me, and every day they're in my rule of life, my plan of love, and I focus on those. I go to Jesus to learn more of him in that reality, right, and then live that out. So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, and that's the thing, is that what is the goal of mental prayer? The goal of the spiritual life of mental prayer, of everything that we do, is union with God. That's mm-hmm. our desire. So until we reach that point, then everything that comes out of our prayer should be pointing us that direction. So you should know, it starts to become very clear. If the intention to go to prayer is to be closer to the Lord, he's going to reveal it to you.
Yeah.
He is simple. He's love. He wants only what's best and what's good for us. And he convicts, he doesn't condemn. So it will come to the surface if you go with the right disposition to prayer. Lord, I love you. I want to be close to you. Lord, heal me, purify me, all those things. It's going to bubble up to the surface, and you can jot it down and take it with you. I was never left with a kind of nebulous, what do I need to do here? He was very, very clear. And you can even ask for more clarity. Yeah. I have asked the Lord, you know that I desire what you want of me, so make it really plain. And he would.
I think one of the powerful things too about it in the earlier stage of spiritual growth is it kind of forces you to pay attention. Mm-hmm. That might be the greatest benefit of it.
Yeah.
Is it forces you to pay attention and listen and go, okay, what do I think? What is the Lord revealing to me? What do I need to do? Right. And then later that becomes normative, and the practice can actually get in the way. That's what I worry about. Mm-hmm. Is if you get too mechanical about stuff like that, you can get stuck.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
All right. Does praying, chanting the office and the breviary also count as vocal prayer, hence the lowest form of prayer? Okay. Lots of issues here. Lowest, not the way to think about it. The breviary has an exalted status because it's connected to the liturgy. And I can tell you that I've been in a community setting praying the breviary, the liturgy of the hours, and seen somebody who's possessed manifest. So
it's very powerful.
It's way more powerful than most people think. Mm-hmm. So don't think of it as a lower form of prayer. It's foundational, which doesn't mean lower, because if you build on the foundation, to the degree the foundation is sound, the building will be sound.
Right.
So it's not less important. Even the greatest, most of the greatest saints, of course, sans those who died early or, in some kind of different kind of situation. But, Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, Therese of Lisieux, Catherine of Siena, St. Francis de Sales, and on, all prayed the breviary as a normative part of their rule of life. And can you put that question back up again, just because I want to make sure we capture all of it. So it is vocal prayer. Mm-hmm. It can become mental prayer if you allow the movement of God in it. Now, if you're a priest or religious, you have a canonical obligation, or a deacon canonical obligation, to finish it. In our community, the laity have an additional blessing. Those who pray the liturgy of the hours, they have the ability, if it draws them into mental prayer or deeper kinds of prayer, they can give themselves to that. But obedience is more important if you have a canonical obligation in those mm-hmm. cases.
Yeah.
So
and it is some of the most exquisite prayer ever written. It's scriptural. So
yeah.
Like you said, if you give yourself over to it, if you're praying them with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your spirit, with all that you are, it can become much more than vocal prayer. Yeah.
Yeah. And vocal prayer really, is vocal prayer isn't good prayer unless it's also mental prayer.
Right.
Teresa said that, Saint Teresa of Avila. So it's our vocal prayer. The definition of vocal prayer is written by somebody else. It's not that it's said out loud. Often it is, but it's written by someone else. It needs to be mental prayer. We need to engage our heart and mind. Chanting, which is the last part of the question, or at least in my order of answering, is beautiful. I mean, we do that every day in our community.
It's part of what engages all of us, right? Our spirit, heart, mind, soul.
Yeah.
There's something about engaging that musical part of us, because we're using our vocal cords, and it's the flow of air, and it makes it more.
And your hearing.
It's much more beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's really good.
Good. Yeah. I think we have about 10 more minutes or so, a little less than that. When God speaks to us interiorly or through dreams, do we follow the usual discernment process? You should follow an extensive discernment process. We've talked about this already a little bit. Stephanie and I did a show on Divine Intimacy Radio. You can find it on SpiritualDirection.com. Just look up locutions. And St. Teresa of Avila outlined in that show 11 ways that she determined you can discern it's from the will of God. So we did an entire show on it. So I would just point people to that. You always use discernment process.
Right.
Always. You never just go, oh, that's from God. I always worry when people do that. Now you over time, you begin to recognize the voice of God more clearly. That's true. But even those who are very mature spiritually will know that the enemy is always trying to get some kind of angle on
He's
us.
Not behind every rock. He's behind every other rock.
Every other rock.
Right. Yeah. And so
that's why we got all the rocks out of our backyard.
Right. So we must discern, when did it happen? What were we thinking about? What were we musing on before, after?
When I say that, those dumb things. Dad, you need to have like a dad joke alert. Is that
right?
What it is?
Yeah.
We should give you a buzzer. I mean, really.
No.
It'd be fun.
To you.
Well, I mean, it's not fun to me because I'm getting buzzed.
Right.
Okay. What's next? Stephanie mentioned a priest who teaches children how to pray. Ooh, we like that priest. Will she please repeat this reference where we can get more information? On your mark, is that go?
Yes, it's Father William Watson with the Sacred Story Institute. So if you go to his site,
sacredstory.net.
Oh, sorry, sacredstory.net. Yeah. I think if you search Sacred Story Institute, it doesn't. Okay.
It goes to a different place.
Okay.
Net.
Okay. Yeah. Sacredstory.net. Sorry. Yeah. And look up the children's program. We actually piloted his children's program in the last Catholic school I was in when I was principal. And so it was really beautiful in how they would, usually it had to be right after recess, and they would go play. And then when they were, had gotten all that energy, they would come in, and there was a meditation that you could listen to. And the children would draw a type of, like they're drawing what they're thinking of as they're listening to the meditation. It was pretty extraordinary. So anyway, he has an entire children's program for that to help teach them mental prayer.
And according to the Ignatian method, and I will tell you, he's a Jesuit, very devout, faithful Jesuit, and he's the international chaplain of Apostoli Viae as well.
Yeah.
So we believe very highly in his work and support it. We recommend his books in our Discernment of Spirits courses. He wrote the foreword to my latest book, Discernment of Spirits, Spiritual Warfare and Discernment of Spirits. He's a very good priest, good man.
Right.
I think last question. I think we'll see how much time we end up with. So the last time
should we touch on this? The lights might go out.
The lights. This is when the lights went out, right?
So please continue with. Can you read that? I can't read it from here. Please
continue how to introduce children to prayer. You had started with the young ones, and we're going to through these different age groups. So isn't it key to spank them and things like that if they stop
Make
praying?
them be afraid of Jesus?
Right.
No.
Hold up crucifixes.
No, damn. Don't go there. No. no, that's not the way. Not the way.
Just trying to help
so
you.
I think we mentioned to not be afraid to get them comfortable with going to mass young.
Yeah.
And so that they get accustomed to that time of silence. They can. It's difficult. It's tough. Listen, I spent many of time standing in the back, swaying back and forth so that my child would not, talk or babble or sing or match pitch with the choir. So that's part of that, and helping them to learn how to pray.
And just have them bring peanut butter and iPads.
No, that's not allowed.
That's how you help a child get happy at mass.
No,
I know
true.
It's terrible.
Which both we've experienced,
it's
believe
terrible.
it or not, right in the middle
really
of mass.
Bad for your kids.
Yes,
you can teach them to sit still, even if they're fidgety. Bring duct tape. Velcro.
No, not that either. Okay, so being serious.
Okay,
how do we get children to pray? There's many ways. Pray with them early. Pray while you're nursing. Pray while you're rocking them.
Physical gestures are big.
Yes.
Right?
I have seen infants that learn sign language to learn how to ask for, milk and more. And I'm not sure what all the gestures are. They're sign languages. If a child can learn how to do that before they're vocal, they can learn how to pray.
Right.
So it all depends on your example. The more you pray, they're going to pray. Mm-hmm. Teaching them how to pray the rosary, even if it's just doing a Hail Mary and Our Father. When our youngest was little, I remember teaching him how to not pray just with his mind, but with his heart. I used to put my hand on his heart and say, pray from here. He understood that. We would pray night prayer with my hand on his chest.
They understand a lot more. And if you help them deal with their lower nature, and don't you think the physicality is huge? I mean, in terms of teaching them to pray.
Yes. I mean, if you think about children creating the different mysteries of the rosary as
using
they pray the
Legos
rosary,
and stuff, even if it doesn't look anything like you think it should,
right?
Let them do it.
And praying as a family, I've had directees say, we do this as a family, and it's just such a battle, and it's a mess, and all that stuff.
Put the kids on their knees.
Doesn't matter.
Put them on their knees.
Yeah.
Get them
if
with
they
their
can.
hands. You can have their hands up too. You can do. It's not just charismatic. Saint Dominic, or was it Saint Dominic? Yeah, I think it was Saint Dominic talked about all these different ways of prayer, and using your physicality is a big deal. It's very helpful for kids.
Yeah, use your body to pray. All of those things. Yes, and the Sacred Story Institute, as we talked about. There was something else. So I started to tell this story about, and this was when the lights went out, so I'll repeat it. But so this one mother, young mother, had her children in the other room, little, tiny, and they were starting to bicker. They were starting to fight and argue. And she immediately started to pray the Hail Mary, and she said, Mother Mary, we need your help. And so she started praying the rosary out loud.
Yeah.
The bickering stopped. One of her little ones came in, grabbed her leg, and said, "Thank you, Mama. Thank you for asking Mary to come." Peace returned. Peace restored immediately.
So awesome.
So we need to understand that the enemy wants us to be at each other. The more that we show our children that we depend on the saints, that we depend on our Blessed Mother to intercede for us and to help us in those difficult times, they will learn that, and they will carry it into their life.
How do you feel about, and I'm totally deferring to you on this, principal lady, how do you feel about rewards after prayer? So let's pray the rosary and you'll get, a pint of ice cream or something like that.
No.
or just a scoop.
No.
No.
It just needs to be part of your normal life.
Sure.
I don't, that doesn't mean, I just don't think it should be reward based. That doesn't mean you don't do special things on Sundays.
Right.
I think you should.
Yeah.
Because that's part of the experience, I think, or part of the celebration of a feast day. Mm-hmm. But all of that's beautiful. There are so many beautiful books that are related to prayer and the life of the spiritual life for children. Children's literature is up and coming, and I especially Sophia Institute has awesome stuff. Beautiful children's section.
Yeah.
I would definitely go to their children's section, and don't fall prey to this idea that I have to go do everything Disney does. That's not true. And some of the Disney stuff out there is getting really bad. It's actually working contrary to your child's life.
And wreck their imagination.
It can wreck their imagination. It can bring in some really bad things. And I'm not going to go there. You can Google it and find out. But there are beautiful resources for your children that will form their imagination, will form their hearts and minds. Brother Leo has an entire series.
Paul McCusker and his audio dramas that are published by Augustine Institute.
Right. They have beautiful things. EWTN has an entire children's section as well.
Sophia Institute's very trusted. So I want to do this. I'm just having a sense we should do this.
Okay.
So before we close out today, and we will give the producer a little bit of time, is there a prayer? Is there a question that has some pain in it? Is somebody suffering and struggling? Or give us what you think, Mrs. Producer, Assistant Lady, is the most important question we should answer before we close out. While she's trying to figure that out, I want to tell folks you can have a free mini course on mental prayer at apostoliva.org. If you go create a profile there, it's all free. Everything in the site's free, and there's unending resources for free. We also do formation on second and fourth Saturdays, for those who don't know, out of the 11,000 folks. But we have people from 44 countries who log in, and we do formation on the interior life. And we answer questions like this, where we have specific areas to study. We're going now through Spiritual Combat by Lorenzo Scupoli, which St. Francis de Sales used to carry with him all the time and give away.
That's deep water, by the way.
Deep water. Apostoliva.org, APOSTOLIVIAE.org, and sign up. That's our community, and you'll be very blessed. So last question. On your mark, get set.
She's thinking about it.
Go. She's still thinking? Did I not give her enough time? Is she messaging you?
There we
go. I'm in the middle of 40-day mental prayer readings you provided. After Lent, what do you suggest I use? I would use, if you're new to prayer, I would use the better part. So the PDF we put together for you is derived from the better part. The better part, in my opinion, is the best and most practical and useful daily meditation on the Gospels ever written.
Yeah.
It's not too much. It's not too long. It's not too short.
It's perfect.
Not shallow.
I used it for the first 3 years of my mental prayer time.
Yeah.
And I got through the entire cycle A, B, and C of the liturgical year.
For the ordinary form.
Yep. I would just, whatever the gospel reading of the day was, I used it for that. I exhausted that. I highlighted it. I really recommend it. It's the way that I really came to know Jesus. It's just an extraordinary book.
The other one is, if you don't have to be ordinary form. You can be extraordinary form, which we do now on Sundays. But you can cross-reference the lectionary. I think LatinMass.org. There's Latin Mass sites out there where you can find, or you can look at your missal and find what the reading is, and then correspond it to one of the
no matter what form you're in, you can look it up. It's beautiful.
It's great. If you want to do spiritual reading daily, the best book ever written for that is Divine Intimacy by Father Gabriel of St. Mary Magdalene. You can get that at Baronius Press. So I think that's it.
Right.
Okay. So thanks for being with us. Thank you all for your commitment to pray and your heart oriented to God. The last thing I'll say, and maybe Stephanie has the last thing too, is don't be discouraged. The secret to prayer, like if you said to me, what is the one secret to succeeding and growing in prayer? And that would be show up. Just show up. Any other last thoughts for you?
Yeah. Don't give up. Those that love you and need you, either now or in the future, are dependent upon you growing in holiness. Somebody needs you to grow in holiness. There's something that they need from you. So it's a responsibility for us, out of love for God, to draw near to him, to allow him to purify us, to draw us towards union for this life and the next, and also so that those graces and those blessings pour out on those that depend on us.
And if Jesus needed to pray,
you need to pray
no matter who you are, Pope, Bishop, Cardinal, priest, religious, lay. Everybody needs to pray, and everybody needs to do it every day.
Right. And reject the lie that there isn't time.
That is a lie.
If you have time to breathe, you have time to pray.
Yeah. All right. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Y'all take care. God bless.
God bless you. It's good to spend time with you.